Today we have to begin by preparing our loom. You're going to get a cardboard loom. This is not going to stay on your project. At the very end, we will take all the yarn off of it. This is brand new, but we will reuse them. So this is not yours to keep. On your loom, we are going to have to put a piece of yarn to create something called the warp. That's what you're going to weave on. So we're actually going to put this yarn in between what I call the teeth of the loom. So I'm going to start with one end of this yarn. I am going to tape the tail on the back side of the loom. With this yarn, I am going to go straight down. I'm going to floss, not the dance, but like I'm flossing my teeth, in and back out of the neighbor. And I'm going to go straight up, and I'm going to repeat that, flossing in and out and down. I am not going around the back to come back up and going around. You will run out of yarn if you do it that way. So I'm just looping around the back side and coming up. So this is called the warp of your loom. This is what we're going to weave in and out of. So at the very end, you might have some yarn left. I am going to tape that tail down. And if you have a lot of extra like I do, you can cut that extra off. On the back side where the tape is, I would like that back tape side, you are going to write your name either with a pencil or a marker. Make sure it's on the tape so that can peel off and we can reuse it. At this point, you are going to go get your yarn, the first color you'd like to start with. So we've already talked about what that looks like. 2 arm stretches to start of yarn. Your job is to get the needle onto that piece of yarn. This is tricky. That's why this is a 3rd grade project. Here's 3 ways. You can try to just put the tail of that yarn through the big eye of the needle. I like to slide the needle back and forth, and that yarn comes through and you can pinch and pull. Sometimes it does start to fray. Second way, you can make a loop and kind of pinch or twist that loop. And then you can use your needle, that eye part back and forth, and you can pinch that yarn through. At least that way it doesn't fray as much. As a 3rd grader, you want to be a problem solver and try to do this on your own. If those 2 ways are not working, I would like you to go to the front of the room and find a tiny little piece of paper where you got your needle. Here's my magic trick. We're going to wrap this piece of paper around the end of the yarn. The piece of paper where you creased it is going to fit through the eye of the needle. I can pinch that fold on the paper and pull my yarn through, and the paper comes off. Pretty cool. At this point, you're going to want to knot your needle onto your yarn. So sometimes kids just take the end and they make a knot at the end of the yarn. I actually want to loop the yarn around the end. Not once, but twice. Now I'm ready to weave. This part is going to look very similar to what you did with paper last year and in 1st grade. I'm going to start either under or over. Doesn't matter. I go under, my needle goes on top. Under, I'm going to have to kind of slide to get that needle on top. I pull a little bit. My yarn is on top of this. Then it goes under, on top and under. And I pull. And I pull and I pull and I pull that whole 2 arms lengths of yarn. This step kids oftentimes forget. I'm going to leave a tail right there. And now I'm going to go back the opposite direction. If I ended under, my next row has to be opposite on top. Under, on top, under, on top, under, on top, and I pull and I pull and I pull. That step of pulling is so important. I want to slide these rows together. I want to keep them very close and nice and neat. I don't want to pull so hard that my warped yarn starts to fold in. Too tight. I'm going to loosen it up. My next row has to start opposite. Right now, blue ended on top. Now blue is going to start under. That's what locks those rows together. So I'm going to go back and forth in this pattern until I am out of yarn. When I come back on the video, I'm going to show you how to tie your next color on to your string. I have finished my first color. I wanted to show you that 2 of my arm's lengths almost filled half of this loom. So if you're about my height, we would have about the same arm's length. You would get 2 colors probably on your loom. If you want to do more of a pattern where you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different colors, only start with an arm's length, 1 arm's length, where this is 2. I know that if I try to weave this back the other way, I'm barely going to have anything left. So I'm going to stop with blue. I'm going to cut and leave a tail. And then I'm going to cut this yarn off of my needle. You will need to throw this little piece away. I have gotten my second color. This one I just did 1 arm's length, so it's shorter. I won't have as much pink. I have to put that needle on the yarn. I use the loop trick. You can use the other tricks I've showed you. I'm going to tie that yarn on the end of the needle. This next step is important. I want to look where I ended. I want to start right next to that. So my blue ended under. My pink is going to start on top. And I'm going to repeat that same step. Under, over, and pull. When I pull the pink, I want to pull and leave a tail. And that tail should be right next to my first color. So at the very end, I will be able to knot those 2 together. I ended here. On top, I go under. As you can see on my blue, I kind of started to pull tight and it did started to bend a little bit in. That's a bad habit I have. I like things tight. So you will need to make sure you don't pull super hard at the end. Otherwise, your weaving is going to be looking like the letter I, where it gets really squished. All right, I got to the end and I'm going to pull and pull and pull, and I'm going to continue with pink. As I'm working, I squish these rows together so that I don't have huge gaps between it. I want to keep those nice and close together, and I'm going to keep going and going and going. When the loom is full and you can't fit any more colors, any more rows, that is when your weaving is done and you're ready for the next step of taking it off the loom.